Hello again, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for this Saturday's edition of Alaska Weather. I'm Dave Percy. Up first on the first graphic here, strong winds lost storminess out over the Bering Sea and pushing into the Aleutians, Alaska Peninsula today, as well as the Pribilofs. Strongest wind gusts, at least through 3 p.m. this afternoon. Cold Bay, peak wind gusts 79 miles per hour. Shimia, way out to the west. North winds up to 76 miles an hour there. And Akun Island, between Unalaska Island and False Pass, had 68 mile per hour wind gusts, and that was continuing to go up by the minute out there. And St. George Island, 62 miles an hour, and also St. Paul Island, 60 mile an hour wind gusts. Those winds produced blizzard conditions out there, along with heavy snow across the Pribilofs today, although temperatures edging up above freezing a little bit there. So any blowing snow will tend to lessen up as it becomes more of a wet slop condition. And onto the hazardous weather graphic, we've got blizzard warning here for the Bristol Bay zone, as well as the Kuskokwim Delta area, Nunivak Island, and that's out until around, 9 p.m. this evening for both of these areas here. Now the Yukon Delta, that's out for Sunday and Sunday night, blizzard warning there, and same thing for St. Lawrence Island for Sunday and Sunday night. Also a winter storm warning there for snow, blowing snow, and visibilities near zero at times. And then this is a winter storm watch area here for the lower Yukon River Valley on up into the greater Galena area, and also along the south coast of the Seward Peninsula, Nulato Hills, eastward there to Nome. So a big change coming up there expected. You had pretty calm conditions today, although the temperature is 24 below zero at 3 p.m. this afternoon and 2 p.m. Anyway, so a big change with systems will be rolling into the Bering Sea now, colliding with the Arctic air that's currently locked in place. And then this red zone here from McGrath, or actually the northern Kuskokwim Valley, that's for the Alaska Range passes, not specifically for the McGrath or Nikolai area, but it illuminated the entire northern zone there. But that's a high wind warning here for the Alaska Range passes, and that kicks into effect sometime, tomorrow and through tomorrow night. So Sunday and Sunday night as winds increase out of the south, gusting to 70 miles per hour. And then up to the northeast here, we've got winter weather advisories out for tomorrow and tomorrow night, as looks like some moisture will swing in and bring several inches of snow along with increasing southerly winds there. So that'll create reduced visibility, especially through the passes of the eastern Brooks Range area and maybe on down to the north slope. Moving on to satellite imagery, we had one system cut through the panhandle, cut through the southern panhandle last night. Moving rapidly out, you can see the front off the map there and the low center pulling into British Columbia. That brought about 3/4 of an inch of rain to a net and about 2/3 of an inch at Ketchikan, while Klawock picked up about 3 to 4/10 of an inch, lighter amounts up to the north. And then here we had trough, upper level trough, leading edge of the Arctic air that was over the western interior of the Bering Sea, now shifting eastward, getting kicked by this big storm out in the Bering Sea, and the Aleutians getting kicked eastward here. So that brought about 1 to 3 inches of snow across south central Alaska, Kenai Peninsula areas, and winds kicked up high enough in the Homer area to create some power outages earlier today, anywhere gusts above 40 miles an hour. That's all coming down now. And this system pushing off to the northeast, weakening, just areas of light snow with it, really nothing too significant. Maybe a few lingering snow showers back along the Alaska Range. But you can see the whiteness to the ground temperature, this clearing occurring. That's the temperatures well below zero all through the western interior here. Milder than up to the northeast along the eastern Arctic coast, so they got that system moving in. And then the huge cloud shield here associated with that intense Bering Sea storm. Western Aleutians under hurricane force wind warnings today into tonight or this evening. Pressure 940 millibars there on that center this afternoon, and those winds trading a lot of snow and blowing snow. That actually improved. Temperature popped up to near 40 this afternoon here in the last hour at Shimia, so that's obviously blowing snow isn't occurring there now. Pribilofs again, 60, 65-mile-an-hour wind gusts with heavy snow throughout the day today there, and warmer air coming northward with this low developing along the frontal boundary down to 972 millibars, and that's changed the rain over to, or the snow over to rain at Unalaska. Temperature into the 40s there, also warming along the Alaska Peninsula, but snow falls past Cold Bay at least up until mid-afternoon today, but I'll be switching over as this pushes up. Winds on the increase along the southwest coast and eventually into Bristol Bay. Pretty calm day today, clear skies, temperatures in the mid-20s, Kodiak Island, light winds, and that pattern all the way up into the western interior of the Seward Peninsula, except temperatures a lot colder than down at Kodiak. And here's a trough cutting through the interior with that band of light snow, and a weak low forming here right over Prince William Sound. And lingering showers there with the upper trough pulling off to the southeast. We'll see for tonight. That's pretty much out of the picture now. Maybe a few lingering snow showers around Stewart or the southern areas. Maybe an isolated snow shower around McGrath. Otherwise, a break in conditions there. Dry and cold, well below zero over the central northern interior. This just some leftover snow shower activity from the Wrangell Mountains up along the eastern Alaska Range. And then that other trough pulling off to the northeast brings a chance of light snow to the eastern Beaufort Sea coast. Actually, maybe even to the central coast as well, with the main low center pulling off to the north in the Arctic. Blizzard warning tonight until 9 p.m. for both Bristol Bay. May hang on a little longer there for the Kuskokwim Delta, but definitely a big downturn in the weather here coming up with snow, blowing snow, pretty strong winds gusting maybe 50 or miles per hour or greater here across the Kuskokwim, and big increase in the wind ahead of the precipitation for the Yukon Delta, St. Lawrence Island areas. And looks like enough warmer air will push in that low center pulling northward here. Winds will drop off for the Pribilofs with a mixture of precipitation, temperatures in the 30s, improving here over the Fox Islands, eventually the Alaska Peninsula. And that area of actually Atka went calm this afternoon. That'll be shifting eastward here, so I'll look for an improvement there for the eastern Aleutians. Stay stormy out to the west with a 950 millibar low holding over the western Aleutians. Then for tomorrow, another intense low forms along this frontal boundary coming northward down to 960 millibars tomorrow afternoon. The original one here, this pulls back to the northwest. That pushes a lot of moisture, that frontal boundary right up, warmer air sliding over the very cold Arctic air, snow and blowing snow all through the Yukon Delta, Seward Peninsula, right up into the Noatak and Selawik valleys, Kobuk Valley, less wind, but still a band of snow extending along and south of the Brooks Range. With snow as far north as Kivalina, maybe not reaching Point Hope, stays dry over the north slope in the Arctic coast. Look for rain heavy at times, strong southeast winds here at Kodiak Island, all the way down along the Alaska Peninsula. Gusts could exceed 70 miles per hour in those locations out of the southeast, and rain and wind increasing along the outer coastline as warm air moves northward, but staying dry over the central and southern southeast coast. And for Monday, front pushes eastward here. That may pull some colder air back in, at least temporarily, here farther to the west again, but widespread area snow and snow showers, mostly in the west, less of that on the north side of the Alaska Range due to downsloping conditions. And at some point over the next 36 to 48 hours, we'll get a Chinook wind in across south central Alaska, and then rain, moderate, maybe heavy at times, more on the moderate side there for the entire southeast coast. Another system down here to the south of Kodiak, that'll be moving up, more wind and rain. Maybe probably not as strong on Monday night, and then this may track up in south central Alaska on Tuesday. I have to watch that, but we'll know more about that tomorrow. And low pressure out over the or southwest of the Pribilofs keeps it quite stormy here over the Bering Sea and the Aleutians, and less wind, but still chance of snow for St. Lawrence Island, blowing snow up there over the northwest. And for low temperatures tonight, 20 to 30 below here, right in the zone, something like that, otherwise below zero all the way out to St. Lawrence Island. And near 2 for Nunivak Island. Actually, these temperatures start coming up here this evening once the wind kicks in. Teens, south central Alaska, below zero up over the eastern interior. And the Panhandle, lows in the 20s to lower, there to mid 30s. And for highs tomorrow, big warm up here, 47 King Salmon, quite a rise from today, 40 for Kodiak, lower 40s Alaska Peninsula, coming into the lower 30s, some areas of south central Alaska. Single numbers above zero for the Tanana Valley, staying below zero to the north. And for the morning lows on Monday, 15 to 20 below North Slope Arctic coast, and single numbers to maybe teens depending on the windy areas will be warmer there in the Tanana Valley. Lower 30s for the lows here are southern Alaska, near 40 Kodiak, and the highs in the lower 40s south central Alaska, those southeast winds, and still below zero along the Arctic coast, but not quite as cold as you have been.
And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Flying weather showing a broad area of IFR here across the, well, from the western Bering, southwest Bering here across the northern Bering, right in across Yukon-Kuskokwim Delta, Kuskokwim Valley, and across the Alaska Range there into southern Cook Inlet, that lifting northward. So improving for Kodiak, improving the Alaska Peninsula eastern Aleutians, VFR in the interior, marginal VFR Arctic coast, IFR right along the coastal areas of the Panhandle, otherwise VFR. And for the afternoon, we've got some IFR up there over Lynn Canal. Looks like northern Lynn Canal, maybe Glacier Bay, VFR to the south. IFR, North Gulf Coast, Valdez, Passage Canal, down along the south side and east side of the Kenai Peninsula. Eastern slopes of the western Alaska Range, southern Kodiak Island to the Alaska Peninsula. Still IFR up there from, looks like the central upper Yukon Valley, westward across the Koyukuk, Kobuk, and Selawik valleys out to the Seward Peninsula, on down to the southwest, to just north of Shemya, and still an area of VFR here from near the Pribilof south there to Nikolsky. And for Monday morning, IFR, again, across much of the southwest interior, off the coast, up to St. Lawrence Island and the Seward Peninsula. Marginal VFR, southwest Bering and the Aleutians, with looks like VFR for the Alaska Peninsula and Kodiak Island. As this area pushes up into the northeast Gulf and eastward toward the Panhandle with IFR over the northern areas. VFR hanging on to extreme south, and also north of the Alaska Range here in the downsloping, due to the downsloping winds, VFR, Tanana Valley, 40-mile country, up the east side there. Looks like IFR southern Brooks Range, western central Arctic coast and North Slope. And for the afternoon, that pretty much holds up in this area, increasing IFR south side of the Brooks Range, marginal VFR central eastern Beaufort Sea coast, IFR for the Panhandle. Gulf of Alaska, some VFR showing up, but lingering IFR in toward the coast range there of northern Prince William Sound, breaking out to VFR Cook Inlet, IFR from the Alaska Range in the narrow band westward there to just north of St. Matthew Island, marginal for the Aleutians, and some IFR creeping back up towards Sitkinak. Passes tomorrow into Tuvik, downward trending conditions, moisture traveling from south to north, VFR becoming marginal, becoming IFR in both southern entrances of Adigan and Anatuvik. Same pattern here, deteriorating, starting out good and then coming down, especially on the southern entrance. Lake Clark and Merrill, IFR, lowest conditions, eastern approaches of both passes, rainy IFR on the eastern entrance, otherwise marginal. And for windy, marginal trending toward IFR on the southern entrance is where you see the IFR possibly staying VFR north side. And Isabel occasionally marginal, and same thing for Mentasta, marginal VFR kind of day coming up. Tanita, VFR, but possible marginal VFR showing up along the eastern entrance throughout the afternoon. Portage, IFR. Chilkoot and White, VFR trending toward IFR into the afternoon. And for the freezing levels at the surface across Bristol Bay, north of the Pribilofs now, up along the coast, down across the Panhandle, 2,000 feet to Prince of Wales Island, 2,000 to 4,000 feet, nudging northward here to the Alaska Peninsula, that strong southerly flow that's developing. And with that, some considerable moderate rime icing, Alaska Peninsula sliding into southwest Kodiak Island, maybe getting into southern Bristol Bay. This mostly in the afternoon, this area lifting northward here of isolated moderate above about 3,000 feet out to St. Lawrence Island. Some icing possibilities North Gulf Coast and the central Aleutians. And the jet stream ridging northward there across the eastern interior, slowly shifting eastward. So we got a good southerly flow here between the cold trough out over the Bering Sea, strong jet across the Pacific, coming up 140 knots toward Kodiak, splitting here. Another branch, 130 knots across the southeast coast out of the northwest. Big storm coming up, triple point low, 40 to 80 knot winds with us at 9,000 feet, 70, 75 across Bristol Bay and the Aleutian Range, 40 to 50 coming into south central Alaska. Another branch southwesterlies, 40 to 60 knots up over the upper Yukon Valley. And out to the west, that weaker low still has 50 to 55 knot winds at 3,000 feet. This is the stronger one, the stronger gradient, 75 knot winds approaching Kodiak and the Alaska Peninsula, 30 to 45 over the southwest interior. Pretty breezy here across much of even the interior. Lighter winds in store over the Panhandle due to the ridging effect. Turbulence, widespread, considerable moderate here, western interior into the central interior, Cook Inlet, back along the Alaska Peninsula and Aleutian, severe. Here, Alaska Peninsula, Kodiak Island, northeast Bristol Bay below 4,000 feet for small aircraft. And after the break, I'll be back with a look at the marine forecasts and other interesting information.
Just as the sun is part of weather on Earth, it also affects weather in space. The sun creates solar wind by steadily releasing a flow of plasma particles in all directions around it. Sometimes the sun gives off a flash of light and X-rays. This is known as a solar flare. When massive bursts of particles explode into space, we call it a coronal mass ejection, or CME. When a CME is directed toward Earth, it hits the magnetosphere, the magnetic field around our planet that protects us. If the storm is large, we may even get to enjoy a light display in the sky called the auroras. In space, satellites may be damaged, and astronauts should take cover. On Earth, people do not feel any physical effects. We may lose electricity in some areas, polar flights may be rerouted, and satellite services may be disrupted. While these situations aren't ideal, they are rare and fixable. This is why we will continue to study the sun and its interactions with Earth and the solar system.
Longing for more space, open skies, and exotic travel? Then look up, about 30 to 600 miles straight up, at the ionosphere, Earth's interface to space. Nestled far above the clouds but below outer space, this little understood destination invites you to explore its many features. Experience both the weather from Earth and the weather from space. Marvel at the ballet of radio waves and navigation signals, like GPS, leaping through this particle paradise. Sit back, relax, and take in the aurora, some satellites, and the International Space Station as they sail by. And you'll want your camera handy for one of the region's signature features, bright and colorful air glow. This daily show is made possible by the ionosphere's own swirling charged particles, because that's what the ionosphere is. It's all charged particles. During the day, enjoy the sea of particles, freshly energized by the sun. As the sun sets, this particle party relaxes and the air glow thins. Our quieter nightlife lets you gaze into clearer skies. The ionosphere is in constant motion, an amazing effect of space weather. Don't miss when solar storms rain down. The storm separates the particles even more, making this colorful region delightfully more dense in some places and stunningly sparse in others. And don't forget about storms from Earth below. Your weather from back home also stirs up this one-of-a-kind destination. Experience the unique beauty of every season, as changes in Earth's atmosphere, daily and annually, can create pressure waves, changing the ionosphere's shape and density. Venture to the equator, where our particles are packed in lush and thick. Cruise along a magnetic field line and see how the ionosphere's charged material also interacts with Earth's own magnetic field. Don't miss the superhighway of particles zipping out to space and back down to the planet. This unpredictable parade of charged particles can help you unplug and unwind. This is because the crowd of particles can garble the radio and satellite communications from home. The ionosphere welcomes you to discover more about this little-known region. After all, once you've explored this interface to space, who knows how much farther you'll be able to go.
When a star, bigger and more massive than the Sun, runs out of fuel at the end of its life, its core collapses while the outer layers are blown off in a supernova explosion. What's left behind depends on the star's original mass. A star roughly 10 to 20 times our Sun leaves behind a neutron star. A more massive star becomes a black hole. Unlike black holes, neutron stars are directly observable, usually as pulsars, the lighthouses of the cosmos. Discovered 50 years ago, they are the densest observable objects in the universe. Neutron stars compress up to twice the Sun's mass into a city-sized sphere. Matter is packed so tightly that a teaspoon of neutron star interior would weigh more than 1 billion tons on Earth. Still, the nature of the ultra-dense matter in the cores of neutron stars is unknown. Because neutron stars pack so much mass into such a tiny volume, they produce gravity strong enough to bend the light they emit, distorting their appearance in a way that enables the mass and size of the star to be measured. Scientists cannot reproduce the extreme conditions in and around neutron stars on Earth. They must look into the galaxy to answer decades-old questions about extreme matter and gravity. NASA's Neutron Star Interior Composition Explorer mission, or NISA, will make X-ray observations of neutron stars from its perch on the International Space Station. It will give astronomers more insight into these mysterious objects, helping determine what is under their surface. A multi-purpose mission, NISA includes a technology demonstration called Sextant. It will analyze NISA's observations to validate the use of rapidly rotating neutron stars as navigation beacons for travel in deep space throughout the solar system and beyond.
And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Welcome back. Today's sea ice analysis. Not a lot changed from yesterday. Maybe a little bit more expansion down to the south or southwest, but with looks like over the next couple of days, at least 3 separate storms are going to be pulling northward. One's actually going to pull up towards St. Lawrence Island here in the next 12 to 24 hours. Other one comes up the west coast, give or take, and then yet another one kind of pulls into the southeast bearing after that. So that any one of those could start to push it back to the north there and kind of compress it with those winds. And for the coastal water forecast, not bad along the southeast coast here, 15 to 20 knots on the south coast, south 15 north side, light southerlies for Lynn Canal and Stevens Passage, south 10 also for Clarence Strait. And the next day we've got gales showing up now, 35 knots out of the south on the south coast, turns south 40, or increased to 40, southeast 45 on the north coast, 17-foot seas, south 20 Lynn Canal, and gale force gusts out of the southeast for Stevens Passage, small craft advisories for Clarence Strait. Prince William Sound, southeast 30 tomorrow, seas 7 feet, southeast 30 knots for the North Gulf Coast, 10 to 14-foot seas, and gales, minimum gales for the Barren Islands, full gales there for the Kamishak Bay area, 40 knots, 14-foot seas, northeast 30 south of the Forelands, northeast 20, northern Cook Inlet. And then big increase in the winds here in Cook Inlet, northern Cook Inlet, south 45 knots, 14-foot seas, full gales all the way down to Kamishak Bay out of the south, 40 to 45 knots. Southerlies 40 knots here for the Barren Islands, western North Gulf Coast, 20 to 24-foot seas. And south 35, 19-foot seas, eastern North Gulf Coast, south 30. A couple windy days for Prince William Sound coming up with seas at 7 feet. And for the east side of Kodiak, south 40 tomorrow. Big change from today, seas 21 feet, 30 knots out of the southeast Shelikof Strait. Alaska Peninsula, Pacific side, southeast 45 knots. Bering Sea side, east 45 knots. Bristol Bay, east 45 knots with 8-foot seas. And then south 35 knots for Bristol Bay on Monday. The peninsula, south 30 knots, so coming down under gale force all the way up to Sitkinak. Gales continue east side of Kodiak Island and Shelikof Strait, south 40 knots, 18-foot seas. Fox Island is kind of a squirrely wind pattern, 40 knots out of the northeast south of Unalaska Island. Otherwise, near and west of Unmak Island, southwest to south at 25, northeast 25 north of Unalaska Island, and seas running 11 to 22 feet. Adak and Atka, south 25 to 35 knots, east 35 west of Adak, and then from Kiska to Shemya, northeast at 45 knots, and those seas 34 feet. And for the Monday outlook for the western Aleutians, 25 increasing to 35 knots, northwest 35 for Adak and Atka, and southwest 35 for Unimak Island and Alaska Island, southwest at 30. And for the southwest coast, southeast winds tomorrow, good gales, 40 knots, east-southeast, easterlies north of Nunivak Island, storm warning St. Matthew Island, northeast at 50, south 35 for the Pribilofs, and northeast 45 for St. Lawrence Island, and gales even in over Norton Sound, east 35 knots. Northeast 20, coming down the next day there for Norton Sound, but northerly gales for St. Lawrence Island. Northwest 20 north of Nunivak Island, northeast 35, good for gales for St. Matthew Island. Southeast 25 for the Pribilof. South of Nunivak Island, south winds 30 knots, seas 15 feet. Eastern Beaufort Sea coast, west-southwest at about 20, and then coming down to 15 out of the west for the central coast. Light winds on the west side from Cape Beaufort all the way down to Wales, northeast at 20. To Cape Thompson, northeast at 20, Cape Thompson to Wales, northeast 30 knots for brisk wind advisories. And brisk wind advisories actually extend for Monday, come up include the west side there for northeast 25, otherwise 30 knots, and then northeast 20 on the central coast and east-northeast 20 to 25 for the east side. For tonight, big storm, blizzard warning coming into Bristol Bay and the Kuskokwim Delta, big increase in the wind, St. Lawrence Island, Yukon Delta tonight into Norton Sound. Wind and rain, milder temperatures come into Kodiak. A chance of snow with this trough, kind of a branch of the moisture coming up to the North Gulf Coast. Otherwise fair over the Panhandle interior. This snow exiting the area. Big storm out over the western Aleutians continues, but it's kind of weakened, slides to the southeast a little bit. This big storm brings strong winds and rain, possibly heavy at times. Warmer temperatures, Kodiak Island, Alaska Peninsula. Milder temperatures, winds on the increase across all of southern Alaska. Snow blowing, snow blizzard conditions possible in the northwest. And for Monday, pretty snowy and breezy in the north. Warmer in the south with Chinook winds over southern Alaska.
These forecasts are for planning purposes only. Call 1-800-WX-BRIEF for a formal pre-flight briefing. Always file a flight plan before you go flying. The U.S. Coast Guard Auxiliary urges you to leave a float plan with a friend or the harbor master before you go boating.